Hopefully, he helps.
Memoir is pretty deep. The three.
Did you see my video?
Thank you. You want your in the main glow?
Someone else. Just in case. I want to look doing around. Give me that. It's good shit right there. See, why are you giving away? Good luck.
I just included those on the site for like purposes.
Yeah, good.
You said you sent this.
Yep.
It's just nothing.
No, sorry.
Contempt of one's expertise, public servant, perception that loss of seniority and powerless against executive fiat will send chilling effects and bargaining power into a doomed spiral absent the plan Standard 26. Concerned with loss of holding not only civil service protection, but also coverage of union opium. It says all scheduled BC disrupts seniority from public bargaining power included. Remaining members want to legislate other time fear the union is futile because protection can be ruined by executive fiat at any time. Show and eventual capacities, including identifying obstacles to policy implementation that eviscerates state capacity. One, perceived legality causes holdouts to quit. Deters applicants and shows candor following expert implementation. But no 25 has a degree coverage for whether the post-accidental threats civil service and pencil which is small trade to correlate to even a dollar. See if it's what assessing show employees from operating expert opinions, just correct from measuring in terms of violating duty. Because see if it's a more executive viewer bill expertise and bureaucracy for the greatest protection assessing capacity under removal quantities and if you're willing to services. The main available to bargain autonomy over implementation enables polycentric whole of government coordination to overcome centralization, over-centralization, siloing, and global collection of the bell. And 25 central polycentric government will implementation individual behaviors, economic and natural resources, interaction across policy system, Trump, education, policy choosing, work, jobs, century, power, damage, chooses, not about existing budgets, expertise, everyone, political authority, executive action, choosing, personnel, particularly impact, constitutional, everywhere else, performance, implementation, providing control about obstacles, all these local approaches, centrally power charges, policy system labor, even the lawsuits, pending as a policy response, executive action is made recommendation from the agencies, a key back policy interest in your interest and person cannot reshape public rights abyss, especially in the context of global public crisis more than 23 hours to reduce risk when they increase in another managing. Journalists will holistic understanding of national chaos from rather than top-down management. Overstop from capacity, equal resilience, and public rights policy, governance, executive policy, provided that scholarship, U.S. federal capacity is what determines whether feedbacks or buffers or accelerants for allowed 25 to the extent risk reports to the government, data trust match the structure that allow the U.S. public rights system by way of targeting the common system of their feedbacks, induces stability, most significant of the rules that act as oversight regulators and accelerate or beyond the evidence, allow to understand the which rights slightly Trump secretary, not simply regulation, shared security, guarantees, or science instead, and will interact with each other, being single public crisis, capacity, and crucial to create different feedbacks, high leverage interventions that the plan generate good feedbacks, and make it existential and force 24 public rights, causal relation will establish scientifically where the myth degree class, public rights generates sound effects, exercise, causal, decline, state function, but not first, but unique features of both older social unrest and the royal laws of climate change, AI, deglobalization, unsustainable debt, unprecedented debt, interconnectivity, and extension, which are exceeding plans to rebound, correctly plan, no single cause, no single solution. So, objective to the corporate totality, capital relation helps better understand agency, powerful actions, so expand power, create favorable system, yet those who shape can possess without power, systems, seeking highlighting how those intervention points for small actions, yield profound changes, scholarship, looking polycrisis triggers, to aggregate extinction risk is the opposite of listing onwards to impact specificity bias, conjunctive fallacy, and completing hazards with vulnerability make any DA scientifically less impactful. Article 25 GTR, for example, actually looking at family biologics into war and air for complex interconnected business, deep public business needs. While GTR work on business has been effective and really helped systems respond to risk and whole worse, then some of the parts exist because they're not taking effect or regulatory action to implicate trust. Statutory much the direct impact natural has critical instructions, as well as corruption, the anti-trust go for ADI, major idea, destabilization, interaction with bionuclear risk, keeping to the contrary, BOR, particular has no place up to feedback, any critical system fail decrease, resilience for the catastrophe sensitive extinction population would fall, and disconnect is non-linear ecological dynamics, including runaway extinction minimum vital sizes are not set by ability to cooperate much higher than genetics because of late risk emerging phenomena need not make to uninhabitable to lead to extinction. Extinction. Contention 2 is Iran. It's an endless war and we're losing. Winning by every definition, military, economic, and the regime overthrown is essential to prevent reconstitution, asymmetric and horizontal escalation, and deter Russia and China. War in 26. Very humble is only one way working successfully along should continue waiting for Iranians. Don't care how many leaders eliminated warships. Okay, emerge from the role of Rome unless someone never surrendered for ceasefire with the institution. War and now will resume as the nuclear facilities for most. Control all terrorist attacks by balance of power to Russia. And try to reach dangerous conclusion of whether that strictly must deny Iran victory by any definition to destroy ability to produce nuclear homes, prevent export of oil while facilitating the ability to overthrow the regime 10 years will fall Russia and China deter perception. We're losing ensures simultaneous Chinese and Russian aggression. Shaw 26. China's punching every responding elsewhere. Taiwan has short protector. The logic window is in concludes the U.S. stretch. First even opening Russia wants to carefully signal broader consequences moving into escalation of boundaries of the conflict extent. The Middle East that necessitates nuclear escalation. Track Burger 24 preference simultaneous consequence. Nuclear adversaries largely damage the conflict with Russia or China. Sufficient research to ensure to use the online nukes. Only the plan solves. 1. Diplomacy. Expert capacity is key to coerce behavior through the fog of war and appease potential partner solvers. In 26, crucial tool of war running Trump with capacity to manage every conflict community wrong life to rebuild relations diplomacy. Make more likely to succeed coerce wars. Only if beliefs, threats, partners use so many in the fog of war. All requires experts who know which back channel call things go wrong to play hardball level in the process. Provide credible assurances. Reassurance allies and adversaries to analysis. Assuaging fear of political retaliation is key to counter retaliatory attacks, including hacking and homeland strikes. And revitalize soft power tools that spur popular regime change, coverage, releasing from where they bear, finishing the responding countering around, link terms, which transfer to employees with limited experience, creating culture, which staff are afraid of, push back, for fear of retaliation, less likely to speak up when there's not a potential attacks in the U.S. type of personnel, less simple sharing and running, the direction trying to pick up the side tools that generally sets diminish, boost America, show important soft power, having the ability to, I guess, in Iran, connect with our Iranians to take over government ability to understand what's happening inside a small review by England's foreign policy, hacking triggers, accidental and inadvertent Israeli escalation, to nuclear war, Brazil 26, one ability to computer malfunction, Israel, like the U.S. should perform attack false 20, to be generated by hacking represent accidental nuclear cause and inadvertent nuclear include in terms of community generated warning. Sponsorship means homeland strikes will be nuclear London in 11 and 26. Iran's U.S. attacks the other night, Russia, China, no code execute WMD detonations in major cities. 3. Economic warfare, interagency autonomy over implementations key to mitigate horrible disclosure and attacks on oil and gas infrastructure. Kramer 26 remains close to goals after the relation that oil and gas companies and experts maintaining context and energy bureaus around retaliated by attacking oil and gas infrastructure avenues that prepare the unusual processes when engaged in interagency to handle infrastructure attacks, trigger nuclear war, nuclear winter, Ginsburg in 89, optimal properties of smoker, but international climate capacity, 6 for cities, 6 for petroleum, 13 global natural catastrophes, similar to nuclear weapons can also result from conventional weapons, and petroleum refineries and deposits are targeted. Economic success is key to political will. In 26, 2 wars, one strikes the other. Economy that fails both her tactical success and strategic failure. Iran needs to only practical will beyond open industry, geo-economic opportunity to will more troubles out of greater leverage, even if my regime did not capacity to defend them more, defending the chance of eventual collapse, loss of it triggers deliberate Israeli nuclear warfare, Shire 26 of Israelis, losing around them before the war that they rage, around with nuclear culture, great lengths, they can't prevent the conventional means that using nuclear no state on the planet does more room was certainly possible. Thus, the plan of the United States federal government should fortify collective bargaining for federal public servants in the United States. Contention 3 is solvency collective bargaining is both necessary and sufficient. First, enforcement workers only trust unions and their institutions. That's why they chose an overall alternatives in January 24 particularly. Allows adjudication for case exemption, also procedure under statute, split the negotiating procedure to substantially arbitrary and labor state. Three, that's only court FSB. FLO ratings are particularly the most effective, even under Trump, Hillary, 24 taking first. There are over 1,000 House of Representatives. FLO majority shows to be though Trump led significant given over has only observed presuming that FLO majority was more hostile. There's no indication of exceeding by a second resistance, win rates, human resources, publicity and lobbying, and standing to challenge our vital to build resist politicization and generate confidence in whistleblower handler. And 24 Trump accelerated leverage rights and policies other structures come under attack efforts to multiply CDJ. Changes enforcement across how all decisions are shaped tools the president uses discipline budget standards knowledge presume operates top level war for market strategies. To provide the agency community district assigning moralizing money funding and PUE union for teams other threats. For numerous examples to the primary means was for resisting with legal education, disability, the legal criticize, for speak out even if not union says to use often over objection on management rights used the better resistance effects and charge CDA power resources and expertise allowing offenses. Achieve higher rates, its reverse causal during 25 specifically. Through CDA and our expertise negotiate policies spend benefits to help retention and pushback against requests to help by standards of fact. Was blown protection to refuse unlawful order if not restore law, litigation result in worse outcomes. Only federal unions have the legal resources and public credibility to pressure Trump to back off law. In 25, organized by federal workers made up social they are harder to for Trump. Nobody else involves this helps them by making compelling look into retention gratifies only festive because public back is better material. We need material interest not ready to rise up always into popularity. Trump is ensuring measuring anti self-preservation, but there's only amount of resistance for advertisers for users rather even power to high power action defense for workers in the future. Third, substance policy autonomy is the only way to access the benefit of expert capacity better 25 of possibilities to capacity structure with the part of the transfer control of the business short discretion. This is expertise studies that schools can protect education, how much business obligation, things that management, publishing, relationship, control, presidents. Underwrite that ancestors, spaces, course, police roads. Expect no issues with trains on dealers, supporters, no chooses. Ancestors, president cannot manage ways that limit the power of free president, clear way to executive prohibit time control, but permit autonomy, capacity, control, and capacity are cost required more than big bunches of environment available over free retaining rates, also for someone's money or policy, or refuse to intervene and show the science race procedure for voicing use, agencies who scripts and budget to rebuild only CDRs accomplish that handler, and whatever commercial located size expertise, among resist for effect, practical legal rulings of by leveraging sufficient resources and enable discretion, including state of child policy, registry, rights CD shape policy ensuring AG has not only influenced policy or primary job of the right incentivize the agent cooperating take purposes of the policy. It's not about reversing firings, it's about protecting holdouts from putting or cowering and debating them union lawsuits shoemaker. And 25 first time we preserve the vast majority of the bargaining trust house well 20,000 less than 2.2 million. Some exceeds bigger his agents at EPA active percent screening has the blood signals before building in the potential Congress creating file lawsuits still working through court even adopt functional now. Good change.
Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. Iran stuff. Trump is already trying to end the war, trying to pull out, and Iran's like, no, we refuse because we don't even want a ceasefire. You've struck us, so we will
Yes, that's
escalate.
horrible.
How did diplomats solve?
Diplomats solve because the line in the Saunders evidence says, in order to coerce behavior, clear the fog, and appease potential partners, you have to, quote, require experts who know which to back channel call when things go wrong, play hardball without blowing up the process, and provide credible reassurance to allies and adversaries. That card is describing the diplomatic interference with those negotiations, which are not happening now because of the
It takes time for collective bargaining rights to be reestablished, for those agreements to be negotiated. Iran war escalating now. How does the plan about solve fast?
Escalating now seems like an assertion.
Our argument is that we're losing the war
Now.
now, and it is going to be long and arduous. It's not that it will quickly end or that Trump will quickly pull out. So CBRs take time to establish is irrelevant because our argument is that the war, like the first word of the first tag on that ban is the war is endless. Which is what?
How does it get resolved?
Successful regime change.
Reopening. Well, so we have three internal links. The first is diplomacy, which Steve explained. It's that line in Saunders that's like hotlines will back channel allies and adversaries. The second is analysis. So intel from the ground ensures that we can have both political action and propaganda to essentially do regime change. The third is economic warfare, which is about the straight over base.
The diplomacy stuff. U.S. diplomacy super uncredible now because Trump just like goes rogue. Says
That's uniqueness for the advantage. The plan
Venezuela.
restores.
How do diplomats reassure allies when Trump is making this?
Yeah, so our evidence explicitly acknowledges this and says that in studies of the first term, when Trump was going crazy, they were able to reframe the messages that Trump is doing by, establishing conversations between diplomats that they've had decades-long relationships with, reframing those policies in a way that assures allies. Our evidence is explicit on the role of diplomats in being able to resolve those, tensions between messaging and what is actually happening.
So let's just like read this more concrete. Trump is like, I want to bomb Venezuela. And then are the diplomats like, yes, we will assure you that Trump's statements are credible and that he wants to bomb Venezuela? Or like, no, we have a crazy person in the room and we just like, please ignore him, hope it doesn't happen? Or like, how does that work?
Like Venezuela has nothing to do with this. You need to read a card that we would like bomb Venezuela now for that question to even begin to be
Total
relevant.
find replace with Iran, like same thing. It's just like how.
All of our internal link evidence is specific to the role of diplomats in Iran. It speaks to the capability to reframe messaging, credibly assure
How do
allies.
diplomats reframe Trump's messaging? What is Trump's messaging and how do diplomats reframe it?
Well, Trump's messaging is often unpredictable and erratic, but essentially what diplomats do is they explain the function of a policy, they explain the function of military assets in a region, they can disseminate
So,
information.
like-
the idea that diplomats are entirely
Like,
useless
we
is like
swear
honestly
these
to make
strikes were
brain rot.
calculated and credible, and we promise he's being incoherent for strategic reasons.
Sorry, say again?
I'm just like really incredulous of this. Okay,
No, absolutely.
how do you solve global polycrisis impacts given you obviously only restore capacity?
Our internal link is about buffers.
And decentralization.
I think
You're wrong here. Okay. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 off. Expertise advantage Iran. Iran section. Yeah, Iran advantage the next.
Oh no, I'm not ready yet.
I'm good.
Okay.
Caveat, can you be loud as hell? Because I just like bent right over top of me. Just
Oh, yes, I will try my time.
okay. Cool, thank you.
Okay, everybody good?
The observer of that counterclaim, the United States Federal Judiciary should issue a district court requiring a collective bargaining for federal public servants in the United States. The executive branch should appeal the order of the circuit court. Hearing the appeal should say the district court order the United States Supreme Court should decline any application seeking to dissolve the state in an unreasoned for procuring opinion. Justice of the Supreme Court should right to procuring opinion. So, irrespectively of the now limited the government is elected to prevail on the merits by inviting courts to agree on one single vacator of the district court order the political branches move the dispute the counter litigation posture of the Congress and the executive proceed. The courts are ready and to order the claimant offers an offer of doing the claim voluntarily to avoid a binding ruling that solves the case by inducing compliance without spending judicial capital up to 23 courts and expedite as though people we counter the executive has raised application of the holding the system that record state during the government resolution simply like the merit system that telegraph the strength of the reward to the companies that have built the government has process back of the political record while doing for after the status quo the single only counterpoint that's in moral precedent limit 26 passages in early motion that escaped and 5% is now lower courts receive less than mechanism but remember lower courts may record the same bottom line result of court on chast that lower courts are not exclusively reading orders of order curating further lower court order directing government to be out of court letters and to where the order government to be out of court so it's presented district court for fine as it can be called when it is required orders of the ministers of the local proceeding to treat Supreme Court orders especially the else court to get lower courts out of the public eye to give one level to people without having a second credibility the threat of adverse ruling posts executive to bend over backwards a single good faith enforcement stop the essential discount from AI separate autonomous weapons needs to find the executive violation of civil court action the executive basis critical litigation alters policy that render more rights for acting the observer effect simulate the executive should policy by board averse judicial outcomes altered by AI within the government including AI and also emerging intelligent analysts cover totally cover action AI said offering these increase in unreasonable hostile escalation like this efficiency escalation be the state onwards autonomous system autonomous will act less predictable states may use AI expenses fantastic including its orange has shoot not AI no charge to make no available security only small parts of the left most aid reduce check on national security executive as use increasingly upload check on the national security executive and the use employment talents by AI and people will be important accurately use important systems signals to government household and first single question that costs AI implemented the doctrine pipeline on the national security executive and indirectly constrained behavior the court politics decide the court is avoiding competition on federal worker protections to give itself political cover to draw a narrow but firm line around federal independence agree 127 court is making full middle country from executive official also the turnaround conference for us protection from the order from broad cover narrow less by the available hard to override code base and legally justice and left right for post release with that principle so applies also civil people and the federal legally remain protecting the core action period enforced no form rights under or the court ever level defense and auspicious police for the court to draw lines both federal which provided and started seeking justice for her and avoid agreement intervention competition judiciary using like could see like prepared to submit against independence SCOTUS will rule in favor of Cook now that Christ independence shall first 2024 to Cook being challenged on the Supreme Court justice acceptable of legality and defense by the non-person of time and factor complete control of the nature set by Betty's Roberts will balance elsewhere to correct the signal of the plane mirror movement 5 6 are high thank you represented as 20 9 by company beer since against the federal law borders and all systems until they have done controversial policy recommendation modes for two circular different immigration rules brought so much be able to political structure law reports and stable legal principle not to show which one side of the other come through law declared from the two justices are popular side that breaks the dollar and the economy market management for legal expert politically motivated for the protect that show that my guardians and also independent online your expectation and conclusion within the four never all independent regular legal power structuring out 18 to extensions of the executive ACB and which kind of model a large member sugar edible from your line of reserve purchase and dollars acres posted for structuring multiple different actually upright attention to co-years ago of neutral the outcome trying to completely behind work for the value of the dollar hegemony it occupies the transition of block states from exiting the US led order that under attacks Americana torture 26 more injuries while human society level of control and the legend of the some money with the financial system economic use and the couple on AI mark at AI the automation is at AI is revolutionizing efficient governance now. Unions block of the case parents 26 AO bring you efficiency also only the body AO will be prevent from liberty setting for 20% AO service request transportation group management resource allocation for making governance how about method reduce from union principally benefits of preventing AI or any element in the court opportunity worker child survey investigation reformat. This is to make use of AI intelligence movements unions act elevation paper protecting workers specifically AI enables work true it just keeps the defense innovation competitiveness living about 25 defense programs being considered after my age to the acquisition elevate increase principles acquisition and pending acquisition running attention occurrence I ensure outputs are easily checked like picking on button and will include user access control should be validate evaluation but not have to listen to the looking at AFL historical performance of top level this money together for a program minutes have to create oversight and reduce have to find alternate right item acquisition before it's still separate by process and procedure fundamentally change the number only get time to the engineers the whole time please demonstrate abusing and the defensive mission codes are producing faster anything else causes existential Chinese escalation to 122 existential would be interesting impediments have critical police and time causes to acquisition real tour brutal labor and procurement impact the acceptance of federal marketplace and up on obstacle for addressing China is everyone looking at every species and medical for that reason a result of is inverted. Okay. The advantage counterclaim. The United States federal government should ban strengthening collective bargaining rights for federal workers, establishing and enforcing ironclad prohibition of deciding to money government specific federal workers for political reasons, anti-discrimination, will protect for violence of laws and rules necessarily legal monies or resources for civil rights, customer fees, pay benefits, and jobs, security, civil protect, streamline out, higher fire promotion, must for federal workers based on merit, reason, and offer benefit for federal workers be fired under the Trump administration, police fund, staff fund, and ban political interference with the merit system, important and entities for organizational reversal. And the regulatory efforts under the Trump administration adopt the scientific integrity enforcement independent board margin, issue financial and inductive working impeach and remove President Donald Trump for the high for violence and separation powers through red meat and local civil service for nation adopt and require federal AI ones to security standards according to a tier group fee structure, including a standard AI system information disclosure and important security standards for incident reporting, audit, inspection, rights teaming, escalating full money overseen by independent AIC security institute maintain routine evaluation of the government AI tools according to ATB, the evaluation metric for organization by test for novel AI tools with within accepted civil service for standard recruits that bring higher annual pay, reasons expanded higher gain competition, and a non-competitive public and permanent position and comply with all of the above. Unions exist regardless of CDR, that's also enforcement living and retaliation that's accessible and told there's no bargaining rights for all results of retaliation. Work-related and post-termination welcome to EO safety, workplace or union regulating NTL for dispute resolution, censor mediation, arbitration, and fact-finding appeals when competition is not being 11 now and FSL and lobby was all connected by the WP resources reduced. Okay, we're gonna just scratch the court politics of that. Okay. The Iran advantage. Protected Iran war complete U.S. air defense that gives Ukraine diplomatic leverage with the West and offers its cheap and innovative counter-drone tech to restore U.S. support work and to resolve as a paper drone intercept purpose on Iraq such Ukraine defense capacity will turn to help SUG open defense to key partner what else this turned out to be opposite of a drone cabinet house fucking gas Ukraine presence of nature pizza sea and wave with Iran will help Ukraine over the counter-drone tactic against Iran and Ukraine pressure on Moscow prevent escalation and return process order lost and Ukraine was nuclear Brazil 25 eagerness to go into police of what's on the order security Russia's mission power here but we cannot all the time for America was always saying Ukraine military US forces to destruction Ukraine said disaster under IR mark research invasion and annexation mission with all less Russian nuclear backlash for nuclear arms based program and levels are the new air mark based on nuclear war externally sold as a served as a counter drone which deters the next great power war by 3 4 Iran we got to multiply the next compromise on the destroy air superior order priorities on the defensive missile air missile like lucky production of paper not enough air superior to easily break against adversaries constant loss second war motive determined more manufacturing base solutions urgent robust circuit breakers prevent the Iran war from becoming catastrophic with down to 26 US shark Iran the world overseas directed president by Roland General will not require China Iranian nuclear power aggression not probable China imported energy consumers with wider workers without this everything Beijing from any China intelligence around our calibrate all of the war despite the absent allies of public interference holder without triggers by single insurance hold no rational act or entity for legal conflict right was not to start around China and agree on little 3 U.S. diplomatic retreat creates an opening for no powers to make governance inevitable or sustainable, which caps global enforcement and for Patrick 26 represents our special power that has against this new partisan stabilis multilateral rules conducted by U.S. evidence democracy built on undisrupted nation of time partisan evidence traded on health tech energy and development with open for power to make a variable jump to where we don't know where to see back with the trouble until law fights by abundance and use of world of the pandemic to develop some of the oceans of the apps that use over operating links into our local water sources no power to harness closing ways to drive for America proof specific for order specifically drives middle power driven AI governance extinction friendly to 2016 the chunk of money for the leather and let it be open for proof multiple AI success is one for the life lesser term of the race to be lying way certain human power upset the low boy over the short term maybe the race are separate thing for meeting to any not government ADI unless you're the secret science safety will do EU news and on criminal upon access to China will look separately on the Western point and 11 if you really still never not possible to mag church and enable civilian China agrees to power city avenues collaboration to down the research and solve now to solving posts of MMA or rally research and all us computers were kind of again on the most social challenges for no cyber impact really I don't 25 cyber isolation where sometimes it's for other start to not cause the short table under escalation not when there's lower talent to permit the scope data from the part independence to try to run a nuclear market nuclear the expertise advantage no holy crisis impact Smith 22 think air chocolate offers with the ability to receive one power point again number 30 as good as supply bills less makers the short term settlement as the negotiation interest rate by market back against one additional money we're designed to achieve the analysis in the infrastructure of our credits will time to come in so this will impact the Ukraine where your economy also doesn't she's not used to how the Ukraine creates for record from every renewable and this free concepts look at this short something first you get serious to the admin state fails what's it go back to advantage 2 no oil impact JP Morgan's reached 19 the effects of which one has been used during the last 100 years. Man was old for getting vaccine on the list of great action for the hitting more minimal in terms of visual scenes center, but these are having over 26. Mark at 26.
Okay. You good?
Yep.
Please kick marks.
Yeah.
Okay. Case, I just missed, I know you read the term, what defense did you do?
I read the Wujanto card, which was
Okay.
about cyber.
Yeah,
I
I
read
just
the-
like neither.
Valeriano as well. Which is
Okay.
the other
So just,
those are both on advantage.
okay, sure.
And then I read no oil impact
Okay.
as well.
The observer effect counterplan competes why?
So the counterplan does not fiat that the court rules we should do the plan. It says that the Supreme Court should like informally say that if the federal government like firing federal workers probably would lose in court, which incentivizes Trump to just do the plan himself rather than risk the court doing like a binding court
so
order.
the counterplan says this will lose in court and Trump does the plan, why?
Well, so if Trump feels like the court is going to strike down his firing of the federal workers, he would rather not have like a binding precedent against him that is a check on his executive power. So he would just be incentivized to do the plan himself
Okay.
rather than be subject to the court.
Do you have a single card about this like Munsinger wear vacator thing? Like, basically,
Yeah.
like that seems to be the whole follow-on argument for the counterplan. I really don't think you put a single card out.
Yeah, the part that says Munsinger vacator just means that like the court can say that they will just decline to rule on whether that was a violation of Trump's executive power if he were to just do the plan himself, because it like moots the question of whether.
Sure. The automation DA. Your internal evidence says the DoD is doing AI procurement now. Which unions block AI key to smart defense procurement?
I don't know what you mean by which unions. The federal workers were fired, not to
Well, yeah,
bargain.
but your ev is like, the DoD is trying to get all this AI cool stuff for procurement. The DoD has never had bargaining rights.
DoD does have unions, and specifically,
What card says that?
What the DoD needs workers and unions for is procurement, because that's the most labor intensive.
What card says it?
I mean, we can obviously read part of it.
Okay, so as of the one to you,
It
no.
does speak to federal workers and unions generally, if you say that. it's
Your
not
cards are
procurement,
public
we can
sector,
talk about
okay,
it.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, like at the state level. Employment counterplan. What does it mean to ban whistleblower retaliations?
The government issues a policy that says if you retaliate against whistleblower, then you are subject to some kind of penalty.
Where the text doesn't say that, you just banned it. Like,
Well, I mean, banning is stronger than a penalty. So a penalty like could be an example of a way that that's enforced, but it would probably, it could be that you're like criminally prosecuted and you go to prison
Okay.
if you
and
retaliate.
you fiat that the counterplan, that the USFG complies with all of the above policies.
Yep.
Okay, what's in that benefit?
Automation, I think. Yeah.
How?
The counterplan doesn't strengthen unions. That's what the link was about.
Or collective bargaining.
But your thing is like, we massively increase the power.
Can you stop right for a second? My computer's like super frozen. Okay. Seven or seven. Well, 707. To be 1,000,000% sure, you skip T, the bargaining counterplan, and scratch core politics, yeah? Okay. 705. Case advantage 1, expertise advantage 2, Iran. CBR thing. The observer effects counterplan. Automation system.
Julia, Palmer.
Sorry.
You gotta be loud.
Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Actually, I'm gonna take a second. 705.
There's nothing that makes me feel like Hey, can you speak up?
Maybe it's the battery in my ear.
Yeah. I did this debate at Georgetown, like, right before COVID with Dallas.
Okay, my computer's like,
That Dallas just started screaming at the
6:37.
They were like, not loud enough. It was so loud. It's like, life changing. He was like, I can't hear any of you. Daisy, tell him to speak up. And I was like, Dallas, they can hear you.
You're screaming.
Plot twist.
You probably could not hear them in our shirt.
Oh. I mean, where do you think he gets those? I mean, really?
He has a fleet of some words that he owns. That's
I believe that.
an army special specialist. Are you ready? Sorry, are we?
Around.
Okay,
Yeah.
6:37, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
that's where I'm at. Good. Okay. No circumvention field solves any reservations for excluding the FOA and necessary performance, but appears to prove just the handler evidence. The argument that federal workers can't strike is irrelevant. They never had the ability to do so. Leverages a government function. Yes, our links were not about. Yes, the handler evidence that they can't negotiate is wrong. Our links were never about changing policy content guardrails, but rather guardrails on discretionary implementation of their warrant is about management threats, which is what I see preempted studies proves that those are often overcome. They do obey Trump policy, but the one he doesn't require disagreement with Trump advantage. One ruling is about the decentralization of government and advantage choose about diplomacy, the analysis of threats. Economic response is about the duties of when necessary, which is providing evidence. The next argument was the no polycrisis impact is wrong. Our term link was that Trump always breaks the poly solutions for managing polycrisis now because policy, whether good or bad, determines private offers, which is for Lawrence and Arnold Smith. The Iran advantage, the Ukraine turn is wrong. Munition depletion ensures the U.S. diverts, which greenlights more Russian aggression. That's true. 2016 depletion is the force of the mother leading compromise right against China. The perfect forces risk to use more money to build actions. Russia will never use nukes in Ukraine. They've been threatening it for years, but have never actually done it, and Ukraine can never gain power. They depend on the U.S. for all their munitions. If they did, it would take years for the war. Happens before that. They've also conceded the long war scenario to get rid of this, but they dropped not only the Israel scenario, which means that they independently cause a nuclear war, even before this turn happens. They've also conceded that any strike on oil and gas facilities, which are inevitable in the status quo because Iran has said that they want to strike them, certainly constitution is the equivalent of a nuclear war. Even if they just blow up oil, the supplies argument is after supplemental bill is coming in Congress now, which means that war causes more munitions to be produced. It's only an app argument because we need diplomacy in the interim, but that's going to be solved inevitably. The middle power turn is wrong. Diplomacy is not reverse. We're trying to it's the only way to successfully achieve this tax by government yield. So we call it the nation for us to invest in all different countries in negotiations with war and all the things around this. The pretty much around self control, we call it the check of the you and you have and I got out closely on the nuclear result with the 14 refreshing meeting research very complex. This will also not close to go with the 40% of your law. Not to mention that the government will investigate for the Japanese over the mistake to what they did. So when our first research is slices, let's say come to like this regime. The rest of policy responsibility that we use never always about to change the analysis such as the benefits of high dark set does not exist. When I see shower sermon evidence, I'll just say that we internally turn alliances which solve no powers, no impact any power. It's like your power that's always wanting your own to the public to go through some of the power like we know. There's other just like opportunities that relation to countries of social places not even not things which actually the Lord calls us to religions and the powers to kind of but those basically you bring up those with the work with the US and other things were much that I got something to help to people international business all the things were more so much instead of the outreach CBR or no, yes, cyber war. Their evidence does not assume that we do not have the capacity to know when these attacks are coming because the internal link about the government being about all the workers in the government doing CBRs or without CBRs not knowing where cyber attacks are coming from. Counterpart. Turn to the counterplan, turn to the plan in every combination of links. It links to that benefit. The counterplan rehires all the workers and gives them massive protection, which also blocks AI. If the link to AI decides big, so is the deficit. Because both rely on unions being good and powerful. CBRs are key one, of course, many fears. Prove that workers only trust unions and handler. Then Morse in 23. Must handle through the MSB like a foreign grading numbers links where you guys have workers self-published understanding there's one defense unions, federal CPA, or never for opportunities to the FOA. The vital second resistance, only unions have the resources, publicity, and standing when makes sure to the handler. Enduring third self and policy autonomy to leverage expertise against Trump better. That's better everybody. Perception alone is sufficient, otherwise we're power equipped, which is one hand and the first one in the OIC. Also, comparison 20 for the executive legislative policy or effectiveness that's one hand and new tradition review, which is better. It just causes more mobilization. 21 period versus subverted, rehiring failed, that's next, and 25 hours on roller coaster, again, whistleblower fails, and not the claim, Robert, 25 was professionals, each from new term links to all the foreign policy and benefits as substar. Is just as bad. Like he's in further in right circles and Christian nationalism. No respect for the government observer effect. Firm do both. Firm do the counterplan. Firm do the counterplan. Then the plan should his future run it. Either which for free determined which can be caused with future runs. Firm do the plan and counterplan process, which solves internal benefit. Texas and the court strikes down for violating the UT Anderson in 25 first step from the substitute course of UT. Leading to property pressure and using the strong constitutional version. And fiating Trump is key. Anderson 25 days of much of the strike action will reduce further connection to constitutional prices. So SCOTUS will say no. AFG 25. Trump is provision of the mutual company about 10 legal loyalist cherished Ruby does not care if the court threatens to strike things down, or he thinks that they'll just do non-national security rulings in the futures like they did with tariffs. He's getting stomped in district courts. So the counterplan is a drop in the bucket, which means it does not shift his perception. That's not it. In 25, Trump taking the course of the course, modern history of the There's a court finding that I think is wrong. One shot the counterplan doesn't solve because Trump thinks that they'll do it for him in other cases. The court won't just restrict him on national security needs. In the day, the court of national security, the court of multiple courses and the substance beyond multiple actors, individual reaction to a counterplan is voting issues to do comparative literature predicts generating enough and possible and find the accusation to the effect of research and strategic thinking just to solve firms in your equal scale. Yes, yeah. The app was never about hiring workers, just policy autonomy, empowering and decentralizing the government, but there's no link. Their card is about AI use in DoD. They factually aren't unionized and have never been. Other countries thumb downsides and solve the upsides of AI, and they provide a model for the private sector. Sports procurement is another one. If the military wants tech, they'll get it. And a big Iran supplemental bill is $200 billion of military modernization that's coming now, or the Anthropic cloud fight. Since President Bush thumb federal AI is the key, the private sector builds in that vice president of the company number that's on the constitutional especially because the duty does all their procurement and private contracts. So AI there solves don't buy the hype. Government desire for AI is high, but uptake is low. GovTech 60 companies want to AI, but there's no providers including data high firms like data but demand is declining as the state collapses hedge and turns the impacts of hormone. These are representative of the American model, selling business in forward was the American society with limited advertising less than willing to find more efficiency using consequential global power. Here is an Iran add-on. Steve, would you also grab me the like app solves AI card?
Yes.
That's not the Iran add-on. Oil attacks to include that whole scheme. Means when you're talking about special having an effective touch that sitting NBC of WB was looking at like society already, which was getting for indicates self-governed markets on the field, a societal breakdown. If Trump thinks he's losing because it's more lash out in other places, that's the effect is global war annexation that's also coming from our human rights officers to be here with the body of the lines of watching and politics companies that the government will have changes some of the military reputation coming in quite late to the past break stuff on the than Iran justice around the 14 months involved in perhaps undertakes it for those important. It also turns the turn because it means that war is probably inevitable from Trump's reaction. Even it's true also to certain time because we've been in war with Iran for a month already, but it hasn't happened now. It causes multi-nation war, the opportunities of the internal reason that war is less for financial war, how years making a war on isolation because he has time for the capital information like the multiple region at 15 years of greater war. Well, to aggress allied attempts to break out that control will cause more war. That's what it is. In 24 hours, possibly the risk of any commerce looking on the countries of the country and any who would put in raptors for their country. In the Portland and aircraft carriers, 20 applications, the operations of the operation of the escape. This was more than escalation war is an existential threat. This is going to be on automation this my computer next week in time. Multiple counterpoints are voting issue for it's impossible for the affirmative to predict a combination of all the things and it's not difficult to only get one plan. The absolutely, yeah, no one's 25% electoral telephone security package, especially caps.
I'm gonna wait for,
Yep.
I sent the middle powers card.
All right, I didn't hear what you said.
I sent the middle powers card.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sending on your website.
Okay.
after I'm done, what I'm gonna do is like to combine the blocks because my computer just can't operate more.
Yeah, my computer also cannot operate.
Okay, great.
Many blocks as we make all.
I just got both, so I'm doing it.
The observer effect counter plan. You're saying no card is like a quo descriptive card about why Trump doesn't like unions. Why would Trump be so determined to, fire the federal workers in the face of restrictions from the court?
I mean, he's like already been in court battles over this for like literally a year. I also made multiple arguments as to why Trump doesn't think the court is going to further restrict his national security power, which means that even if you win that the court, like you won't win that the court
So the
changes his
reason
mind because of the
Trump
national
feels
security.
so confident that he wants to fire the workers now is because he does not think the court is going to
It's not
restrict his
only that,
executive.
Trump literally he got into office on day one and took away all the rights. He's been in court battles for a year over it. And like the news is saying he's going to he could very well lose those court battles at the district
Okay,
level, right?
so
He already has the district and he
you
got appealed,
read-
but that didn't stop him.
You read this Anderson card about the court striking down for violating
Supreme
UBT.
Court, yeah.
Yes. Is the implication of that like Trump, is that about Trump's perception?
It's
or-
both. So the counterplan, my understanding is it does not fiat the Supreme Court. So this argument says that it doesn't solve because the Supreme Court, after it gets up to them, would say no. And even if for some reason we found out in the block that the counterplan is about the Supreme Court, then Trump knows that the Supreme
Okay,
Court
so-
wants the UBT.
So the
he doesn't
strike
think
down
it'll strike
argument
down.
is like downstream of if Trump doesn't follow on, how will the Supreme Court respond?
No, it's both. I just explained it's two angles, right? Like if the counterplan doesn't fiat the Supreme Court, we think that they will strike the rest of the counterplan down. If
That's fine.
secondarily, we think that Trump knows that, or at least thinks that,
That's fine.
which means he won't proceed. He won't comply with the counterplan.
What is the difference between counterplan and the plan and plan through the process?
Well, plan through the process, the type is plan and the process. Not plan through the
What
process.
is
So plan
plan
and the
and-
process is like the whole court ping ponging, like this guy in the district should do this, like whatever that process was, we think solves it.
How is that different from doing both?
Because the text of the perm specifies that the counterplan does not occur over the subject matter of the plan.
Okay, so this is like an other issue.
It's not other issues because I just deleted the subject matter, not added a different subject matter.
All right, that's good. The evidence you read on automation about other fill-ins for AI. You've read internal links into 1EC about, federal government capacity necessary to solve all problems. Why are we confident other actors can fill in sufficiently?
There's words about AI, like other countries are making AI. Like the Netherlands, I think it is, has like the biggest chip factory outside of Taiwan. In the
So
world.
if other countries are sufficient to solve AI, and AI is like one of the things listed in your poly-crisis impact, then
That's
how
not
do we
what a
know?
poly-crisis
How do we
is.
know
A
the
scenario
U.S.
is not-
alone is sufficient to solve
No.
the
A
poly-crisis?
scenario is not like individual things, or it's the sum of all of them together. We think that not only does the government stop bad things from happening, but they also do good policy, which is a positive.
Why? But like,
It's like an intervention into bad things, and
so
also
if we
good
solve the
policy.
AI and the climate and the tech and whatever, why would that be?
Well, if you solve the poly crisis, then you solve the poly crisis. If that's your question.
Great.
What was the first argument on the middle
Uh, what do you? I think I just read the cast card.
Okay, what was the second argument?
To be like 1,000,000% honest, it was from the dome, and I don't entirely recall. But Steve, did you float security on the card?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
What was the question?
What was the second argument on middle powers? I think our response to.
Non-cardinal. That's fine.
I think it was. We've been.
The middle power AI governments? Oh, sorry. It is. I have flowed key success achieved and no impact anyway.
Got it.
So,
That's also what I have, so that's okay.
okay. Okay, 608. It's seven.
Yeah.
Never wrong.
Well, I'll just get the order in the meantime. Should we just switch the blue paper that's blue paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then- yeah. can you-
No.
It's terminal. It's just like this fan is so loud.
We can also like scoot these forward.
No,
No.
That's okay.
you got a whole.
Turn it off. You just fix your computer.
Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
like try to contact the hotel and like turn it off?
No, let's just slide the entire like line to make sure.
Yeah.
Most of it.
You spill that, it's just.
Just got there.
Disaster.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
You were mildly creeped out by our presence before.
This
Wait,
is way better.
okay, great.
We'll look at it later.
Yeah, we don't want to keep going. Get him out of here.
Okay, if everyone's ready for order, it is advantage 2, advantage 1. Okay. Ukraine wants causes extinction laws of such a disastrous crisis that undoes IR and villains war invasions and annexations to escalate that outweighs 1. Risk of escalation, Russia using nuclear weapons as a critical tactic in conflict that raises the risk of triggering other countries launching warning and mishap by fall before 2. They dropped a spillover impact about how it allows the US to learn from Ukraine's counterprograms to counter great power wars in every single other theater flows over to China and getting Taiwan because there's proof that invasions work and are legitimate extinction from nuclear use this process can go evidence and drop that drone spillover to other theaters of power because it makes the US permanently inferior if they're unable to learn from Ukraine on other battlefields that infinitely causes terminal and endless great power wars that lack evidence, no need, money, or answers. In Turret's case, loss of Russia causes the impacts faster and causes Iran to hold its adversaries now to AC1 was munition depletion. This is our argument. All of our evidence says that the US is totally depleting their munitions now because their interceptors and missiles are way too expensive, but only Ukraine has figured out the drone signals to be able to counter Russia, so they are able to sustain themselves against Russia now, but they don't have the sufficient funding. They don't have sufficient funding if they have the sufficient tax they need to strike a bargain with the US, and Ukraine has leverage now because of Israel. One is that Iran retaliatory attacks very urgent demand for Ukrainian military know-how because Russia and Iran use the same drones model, and only Ukraine has figured out how to release them too. The US will drive a bargain with Ukraine. There's pressure to end the conflict before the midterms of the conflict can go. Evidence the US will respond to threat shortages by investing in Ukrainian drone production with fall 315. This does the opposite. The US should shoot out Iran picked up as well by the American focus on the American military export efforts to create successfully to truck spending Ukrainian drone companies now in Israel independently causing escalation. Totally wrong. Iran is not escalating against Israel. It alone cannot escalate because it would not cause other countries to draw into the region, which is their only word for why it escalates. Defense is true. One is dependence. China imports energy through Hormuz, so you wouldn't want the war to go all out. Nuclear 2 is false positive. China sharing intel with Israel's calibrated alignment, but not intention to conventionally involve themselves in the war. 3 is survival. No rational actor would initiate nuclear conflict when its survival is not directly threatened to on to evidence. 4, Iran works to draw in great power or the nuclear future is disabled, and there are no satisfactory. 312, World War is unattributable, devastating, and 312 as revelation of war pulls and puts your power to competition, rebels, and regional, not with the direction or China itself, so regional, so integrated, not with the region, no military, but no power connection, bipolar structures to be stable, and the nuclear reduce the risk. The oil and gas stuff, they totally dropped the card for one as you read at the end of the speech. That says oil and gas will not shock the market, so it would not cause economic insecurity and escalate. But second is that if there's no energy war, it'll be short deals. So when it's with 3, 4, Iran charges costs that will not work to Iran, so oil will stop short of the until the expert Iran saying Iran cannot escalate the through retaliation to Iran. It also already noticed for global Iran exports are Iran's like loss. The end of the uses for insulin, the export over the SDR exported, the exported nature takes the environmental drug by conclusion of Iran's already checks on inside no energy story. Its own collapse. Now the one is the courts by Israeli attack are totally stupid. The one is the endless war card. It's from an Israeli ambassador, of course, the Iran would escalate regardless. The aggression card just says that Russia watches and says that China will respond elsewhere. It's super, or may respond elsewhere. It's super speculative and assumes that Iran succeeds. But if the US has Ukraine drones to solve the war, then they won't succeed. The card about Iran WMDs is obviously about conventional weapons because Iran doesn't have nukes. The card that they write about oil effects on nuclear is a European energy crisis, which is geopolitically totally different than Iran. And they say Trump thinks he's losing, he'll lash out. The United States federal government should forswear starting conventional nuclear wars. They say the war is not unique. Obviously, Ukraine is trying to start conventional now, which is all over needing this evidence. It proves that it's trying to keep that going, and the plan and the war ground defense cards. Okay. Zero China, China introduced Iran Olsen 3-7. China, voted military police and able to come by anywhere near the element of power can send if your would be sitting in Dutch China. We're interested how graduate on the report made you nothing. They don't even really like to call it 3-5. China's watching, although concerned is not involved hands off, has been a long time coming. China to determine their own power because our overseeing the Chinese analysts, Iran and China resolve Iran's frequent proxies further weaken China's confidence in this regime. Switching is often reaching to party to ensure that Iran remains viable. It's switching agnostic Beijing is also the grounds of the regime because of China's relations with the US. Beijing wants to work with Trump. No, Russia also won't get involved for us. 31 Moscow's responses to the Baltic items to Russia coming to rescue the relations with China. Very carefully committed to already struck the British side and so to domestic military force with Moscow to advise during war last year's relationship is not unlike middle powers, or just like the middle powers turn on the same page. Wow, they had extra time in the 2EC and still dropped the AI impact on the DA. In middle power leadership is existential one. Unilateral diplomacy has existential risk cooperation on trade, climate, health, innovation, energy, and health, and creates a mutual incentive for conflict escalation and solves global risk management. That's the project evidence two. Co-op solves the case better. Every single one of the impact is global in nature. Polling crisis definitionally means solving an issue only domestically cannot solve the rest. In a comprehensive unilateral risk management key. 3. Unsafe AI causes extinction even when the measures for personal self-improvement that rapidly overprice many that Patrick and Franklin evidence. 4. Time frame critical window now to regulate AI before the claim never shows that subsequent evidence. No new disciplinary or interest to be adopted. 5. Middle power leadership solves back the impact of risen Europe to engage in US in governance long test. 25. Trump's return market research listeners and reserves a message of Americans about and mills about developing track legislation to the US of rule. Green evidence for years is that Europeans have to mitigate discrimination, the rules for summer coffee Europeans government relations to US longer term. They said no middle powers impact one failure cards are based on a lack of influence now to produce long-lasting forms and agreements. That doesn't assume that uniqueness, U.S. retreat causes countries to coordinate partnerships and unilateral frameworks with middle powers. And Patrick evidence to textual analysis through middle power influence is rising. They're responsible for growing share of agreement text. Record 26 can middle powers because they've already and a WTO agreement publishes middle powers about that. Legislation the large contributions to the federal tax consultants and large contributions from 6 countries of the large like the economies are following the top 5 middle power influence depends on community interest and recognition from similar groups working together on specifications middle powers. 3. The number has doubled since the uniform Roman Korea. 3. 5. Geopolitical partition exceeds at the end of World War II. 6. Power and politicians middle power really don't put anyone to the internal relationship with the country. 15. Great independent crisis shift from regional to co-op this. Global co-op this redistribution of forces rights, middle powers, system rights, great powers, middle powers. With the global impact, the link stuff was totally dropped. They did not answer the premise that middle power, that U.S. leadership is mutually exclusive with middle power leadership systems. There's no new way arguments being conceded. Their diplomacy, internal and they provide credibility and allow the U.S. to reframe every single message that has to be credible, which ensures that allies believe and invest in the U.S. or one of the evidence that they are that trades off of middle power legitimacy because China thinks that middle power are just puppets. Otherwise, they absolutely do not read new correspondence. They're not reading new with evidence. Tina said Steve, don't know what that means. Totally wrong. We read evidence that they saw. Okay. Also the defense on advantage too. There's no cyber because cyber more impact. The only two escapes are that they don't have the capacity to know when they're coming, but that is our argument. It's impossible to review and understand how the cyber attacks happen, so it's difficult to escalate in time. Snap predicts the escalate of China and first does not cause only disruptive retaliation but two is no capabilities actually okay, 2 experimental studies disprove escalation tested at all 24 80 possibilities charged by multiple special laws and recommendations where no large action use all different sort of testing surrounding laws right network serving 400 crisis response by war being certain center of escalation center of something that range options and provided to bargaining space secret offerings and alternatives to military force. Also, even more empirical on Arcane 22 mental role of cyber defense goes no surprise relations to the last study nominal several escalation into the center program of escalation no good speed and like future cyber responses but it will use led no undefiled action on the distribution cyber guys are always going to take African parts of certain fire continue cyber and military ops. Now, advantage 1. Okay. Not sure why the 2C spent like 10 hours answering cards we didn't read in the 1C. You can see it's all key proofs linked to both of the terms. But now, instead, the only evidence offered that we read in the 1C. No polycrisis. One polycrisis self-correcting, for example, when supply faults at last command. Coaches in 2008 should have needed Obamacare and Russian policy being great war. Or no, okay. China recession reduced the risk of U.S. China war. That's evidence. Their argument about policy solutions does not assume the systemic buffers are negative. So the point of systemic buffers is that it doesn't need active intervention or solutions are whole. And the point is that problems solve problems, not that we need solutions to solve problems too. No negative feedback with structure. 23. Polycrisis second 1970 systems about warnings and disciplinary feedback. If I cannot use such systems or about the incompetent systems of viruses that will try to get instructions by teachers and infrastructure reverse the way that trying to let some work some produces and crisis and return back to one crisis. Let's see about understanding demand help prevent which is why one crisis will probably distracts more than it adds 3. There's nothing new about this. It's just a myth burner. 23. Polycrisis across probably the reason Trump can use some technology covered up by business. I will use 10 inches of remarkable array of data sets otherwise the technology instruments. These entirely expressively believe that medical crisis special history mappings have always been detected. I will show you from how this hyperventilating each way back to so death letters. That's something to things that I'm missing like that. Okay,
I'm gonna get started, Josh. Is that fine? Okay. Alright, I want to start on the link to the Iran argument. The first card says that there is increased demand. The second card said it would, quote, suggest a bargain. What card do you have that says that Iran or that Ukraine has the drone production capability and specifies a time frame for such?
well, okay, first thing is that our whole argument is that U.S. investment is key for Ukraine to have the capacity to counter Russia. They have the know-how, they have the right drones to fight Russia, but they need U.S. investment. The second thing is that the 1 and 2 turn card says that Ukraine is looking into striking a bargain with the U.S. now because they have
Yeah, I know they're looking to strike a bargain,
that
but
the Iran conflict.
The question I'm asking is more so like a development production capability, right? I understand that you have a card that they are interested in trading with the U.S. and the U.S. like could help them build them, but I haven't seen a card that says this is the time scale for that. This is how it would happen. This is how it solves the conflict in this time.
All of our
Do you have one that describes
March,
that?
And they're about, oh, it is super.
Yeah, but none of them say here's how long it takes Ukraine to build drones, or here's how that solves in the short term.
Right, okay, the 1 and 2 part is so good, it's comprehensive evidence, it says like the whole story, it's like, as demand for drone interceptor test and under Iranian attack, Ukraine's defense capacity most.
I'm asking it-
opening.
I'm asking
It then
a
says
time
that they
frame
become a key
question.
partner. It then says that, pressure on the midterm means that
But
Trump will want to
the
place
fall
an
part you
Iran
read,
war,
the fall part that you read in the 2NC has a line, it says, you know, Ukrainian warriors have developed expertise over the last 4 years, which seems to indicate that Ukraine is trying, but not succeeding. It's like they've been doing
Because
it
they
for
don't
4
have the leverage to force.
Right,
the
so
US.
what part says once the US joins them, it solves quickly?
Because, so the 1 and 2 part ends with clear victory for rule-based order, that is the impact to getting the US to join them. It says, these steps suggest a strategic bargain, the Ukraine provides counter drone techniques.
No, I'm
The
reading
US
that, but there's
increases
no.
pressure on Moscow.
Okay,
That
yeah, I can also
Moscow.
read the 1 and C card, but it doesn't actually answer my question, which is why I asked the question. That's okay. The Iran defense, the argument about it not drawing in great powers, the Beckable card, it seems to intend to answer like whether or not they join the Iran war itself, but not whether or not there will be horizontal escalation, i.e. other theaters, a two-front war, China invading Taiwan, for example, or Russia expanding the war in
Right,
Ukraine.
first of all,
Do you-
that impacts internal link way worse, because what? And then also second
What?
is that,
That's-
that assumes that the conflict is successful, because it assumes that there's like a proof of concept for successful, Iranian overtaking of the US.
What part do you
But our
have to
point is
support
that
any of
with
that part?
With Ukraine's drones, the US will be able to counter Iran as well.
No,
So,
no, wait, sorry, what part says that that it
It's
solves
like a your part.
horizontal escalation?
no, it's an insight of your card. Your card says that China might invade Taiwan now that they see that Iran is succeeding, now that the rules-based order is collapsing. But our argument isn't that the status quo after the plan is that the Iran war just goes crazy. It's that the U.S., rather than resolving it through the plan, resolves it through getting Ukrainian counter-military drones, and therefore it resolves the conflict.
Did you send the text for the USFG should never do war?
No,
No.
it's fine. I was almost like, okay, that's my bad.
I'll bring this over.
Yeah, okay.
Advantage counter plan. automation DA observer. Sorry.
I need to get the dog, sorry.
Okay, I'm a student. Everyone else can. Advanced currently not going for it was conditional. The automation design concede other countries are key to solve the upsides of AI. Cruise middle power structure they certainly cannot solve. Also concede unions are not key to AI, which takes out the cyber add-on. Concede that headshots impact on our argument on the middle power structure. Because root collapse of the order is key. Multi-plane counterplans are not a voting issue. Reject the argument, not the team. The observer effect counterplan was one plane, so it doesn't link. The app does not solve AI. Direct decisions internal link to hiring cyber workers. They have no internal link between the workforce and AI. Will be already continue to use not solve above. If they read a new part of the internal link, it's going to be new. The observer effect. The counterplan is a lower court. The counterplan is a lower court order. The plan that the appellate court stays the order. Then the Supreme Court writes favorably about the lower court decision despite leaving the state in place. That creates a sort of Damocles for the executive. If they do nothing, it looks like the court will just enact the plan as an external binding restraint. To avoid this, the executive will take the counterplan's all appointments, vacates the lower court order, but only once the executive enacts the plan voluntarily. 3. That solves the executive enacts the same policy with the same effect which restores CVRs. The executive retains the formal freedom to reverse court, but the vacated opinion reveals how the courts would rule it turns again, which determines the reversal despite not setting binding precedent. That's a 4 and avoids our court decides. Unlike the plan, there's no binding political precedent. Courts participate by nudging the political branches, but they use signals instead of commands which dodges backlash. That's slipping now. The secrecy net benefit outweighs the AI integration and cyber and military outcomes. It's accidental misuse of one of the most legal fighting forms in the world. Even a small accident can cause escalating cycle of reprisals where unchecked automation prevents rational signaling and de-escalation ending in nuclear war. That's Deeks. The first argument was do both. It links to the benefit of the plan's binding high profile ruling 2 mutually exclusive. The counterplan beyond the final resolution is withheld that means the exact ruling that the plan requires beyond ignorant is severance, which means that the plan does not prove the plan. 2 would do the counterplan. It severs voting issue for the turns that one it never mandates the plan. It stays and vacates the only court ruling on the plan, leaving nothing on the books. If the plan can be done this way, neither side gets a liable ground because AFL always loses strike down unless they write unbeatable circumvention good aptitude. The counterplan influences intervention bargaining without declaring winners and losers on D25. The procedural decision courts make political bodies information for federal government determine when it's allowed the politics by employment, which is their voting scores like as we did not let a privilege hold the rights to read changes encouraged, not mandated. That's the same for the plain Deeks 13. The observer is the same for the examiners also order requires specific changes left at least not nominated change before reasons matters. Telling their policy 4 competition will be about mandates not affect that's key to that ground. Any conflict can result in the plan because any action can have the indirect effect of making the plan more likely kills ground because the status quo is indivisible. Entire right is overpowered B at ground. If it does allow counterplans, it includes picks out of advantages and normal means which no active plan C moves objective. It's impossible to anticipate all the plan's effects making competition irresolvable. 3 was counterplan and then the plan is intrinsic. Neither the plan nor the counterplan includes the late voting issue. They can add anything result the link 2 links to net benefit. Still the links the counterplan forms the plan which is impacted on do both or just the counterplan which severs. That's on do the counterplan 3 does not solve it links to the firm do both. Insert executive lawyers will just roll back transparency after the firm reveals it's your hand only uncertainty encourages good executive behavior. The accepting the other factors on the impact of the most probable consideration on where like the website drives executive to alter disclose and improve policy before the court reason to principle of our response to the order the person to the effect is that not mandatory changes before court reason their tone and the alter or related one of uncertainty about whether or not the court may include these policies that severs immediacy collective bargaining rights are mandatory and immediate so we got all 24th the statute include requirement the collective bargaining rights continue to include and display like the require these here we mandatory rather than permissive and should as an immediate sellers of the order should have not been mandatory account should have been met now later and due to our aspirational not in mandatory to 5 before immediacy is required for net ground politics log and economy or goods all required deviation from no policy baseline clarifying that what happens later delete all net ground 4 was the term other issues that links told you both answers we read a linear data substantive non-differential link each one nullifies the benefit of threat by making it look like conceding preemptively and not else would be the court 2 is intrinsic the counterplan does the plan then voids it nothing else there's no separate threat function they can produce entirely apply to the counterplan direct act 3 without specification doesn't solve nothing even forces the firm to relate to separation of powers or decide to pick a different less controversial issue 5 was that the court strike it down we assert they asserted we don't fiat SCOTUS that's wrong the text fiat that they deny cert which means that they cannot strike it down it finds future national security decision making touch which one when the court's working for weighing in because of it's a impact on future civic proposal because of the amendment that apply the court's influence national security executive action equal exercising difference 6 and 7 group them it was both just say no but that's wrong political branches say yes the process of the counterplan convenes the courts want to do the after they prefer if the branches did it themselves Trump church to signal do this as the easy or the hard way will choose to do it practically instead of inviting ruling 2 Congress and Trump will see a binding ruling copy and restore due to the proposal or review cancel 12 that overly court engages for an opposite of what you signal not be so you don't want to do this for the core opportunities will allow us to different avoiding turning out as the president signal on the next round to by the constitutional scrutiny that can aid the court by giving evidence where the court can empower another body change and change the law to records prove the counterfeit process is a perfect track record of creating settlement SOP cases, which was the one to see evidence for past examples of usually by the House and executive order enforcement. You know how the same from yourself that committees to this have knives and bold and not having many rights and will hear the case to put a house and put it on into negotiating settlement court begins although if you tell us people not always begin to be a 10 month for arbitration in the playbook. It was tariff proof. That's why I love it. Yeah. The reason Trump was fighting over tariffs is because he thinks he could win, but the 5-4 decision proves that he thinks he could win, whereas the counterclaim has all 9 justices concurred. Stopped in district court is irrelevant. Its scope description doesn't assume the counterclaim. No, spillover is wrong because the counterclaim encourages the executive to scale back overclassifications, lower proceedings, and corporate good faith to discourage courts from meddling in security issues, which we know proactively relies on security. 11 was what we're on national security. We do beyond it, which was above. It's not about court legitimacy, about Trump's share info with the courts. Law was multi-actor fiat or interpreting multiple actors within the USFT. That's reciprocity fiat the court and enforcement to the exact otherwise negative assumption, keeping the ground otherwise from this counterclaim. There's no process counterclaims, and we can't enforce any advantage counterclaims. Conditionality is good when each and every goals and negatives prove them. Plan not defend one's return to confidence, operating from this counterclaim, not prove one's good idea, opportunities, one shifting goalposts, 2 next flights, prevents next choice, and adaptation, reducing direction, advantage, reducing the cost, risk aversion, accepting for things more than effect on involving given issue case or heavily conditional vibe, not that. That seems to exist, disposed, cultivate, incentivize, question, self, that's because they form current back to do both. Bill firm bills to encourage transparency, trade out digitally, inducing internal controls, looking oversight, where it's feasible body rules, try that out, Measure Act, 17 internal and external law bar, with traditional enforcement, operational law, specific, legality, external control, only connected against a new lever, canceling the rest of the regulate the core internal piece of the civil service, internal law be different for action, not the internal requirements, received by internal law be critical and releasing unlawful assertion of power to intend that the counterclaim, although rewards compliance by not willing code, 26 downside is the risk of abusive precedent. The judicial order releases to implement the and one more or less the game from legal chain, mark and constraint, game 3, proof turn, 15, agency A has judicature to whether or not to whether high evidence community policy that conditional governance regime linked to the point of the agency conferred terms to conditional court review, conditional preference for the agency level best high evidence review, the difference will review of the second or only with respect to any process of review. Or get review.
637. Hold down for
17.
17. I think it's about 17.
Yeah, no worries.
You just stop looking at that.
17.
I'm suddenly dark and Joanna's also suddenly dark. Yeah, not only is it super loud, it's also freezing. So,
What a delight.
yeah, really.
Sure.
If it was warm, I would be. So
Yeah, that's fair.
You're telling me this isn't like exciting enough for you to stay up?
Honestly, I'm riveted.
And that Celsius isn't doing any of this?
That's not even getting me back to basics.
You're like, not sleep? What happened? You go to nighttime.
It's you nuts. I don't know if that makes a
Just pick one and trust
difference.
us on the other.
It's fine. I'm pouring a lot of ways.
Okay, gentlemen from work. Yeah. Okay, it is the expertise advantage, the lawn advantage, the automation DA, the observer effect conflict. Are we good?
I would be using the
Mhm.
Okay, I have the hand around. And then it's gonna be
Yeah, no worries.
Okay.
You're good? Middle power turn is wrong. The two teams have swing and miss. Choice. He casts evidence as effective diplomacy is key to effective use of retrenchment. Remember, extending ourselves globally, it says Trump is currently antagonizing allies and being haphazard, which is their uniqueness, but the plan solved by quote resetting relationships and forging new ones. A straight turn to all of this because Trump belligerents. And this goes what calls out middle powers too. He just says, I don't know what this is. It was a link to it, and that function said nothing to answer it. Come on, it's not key to belligerents. Middle powers don't control the biggest economy in the world and all global institutions. Unsafe AIs and have to add on the government is key to it, which is suicide now. But they cannot solve the day. Cannot solve the case now. Existential blood crisis guarantees extinction, overlapping structural issues with economics, political polarization, environmental crisis, disease, overwhelming response capacity, which guarantees systemic collapse, which is uniquely exacerbated by Trump, which is over existence, is to reject pre-Trump defense, and defense is just historical analysis of the way the world has been. Or have explicitly says it's going structurally unstable, self-directed, as long lords over Dixon and paralysis, active intervention is necessary because otherwise we risk one link of the climate crisis escalating into another. Nothing new about it, just not assume Trump is carved out the rise of populist leaders, and you have the stabilizing military attack and environmental tipping points. They never answered specificity bias and conjunctive fallacy because the very structure of this link change mathematically less probable than all adjunctive. Estimation of all risks for which the U.S. states acts as an intermediate actor, good or bad, which is for on the north side, and only we have evidence of U.S. key. Now, the Iran advantage, long war, inevitable. The crush for the aft. Israel will blow them up because of it. If it goes on longer, Iran will blow up our oil facilities. If the conceded causes nuclear winter, if Trump thinks he's losing, he'll start new wars and new theaters, which means all of our impacts happen before the term. And we solve all great power wars on the automation DA, so drone spills over is irrelevant. Because the term of impact is counted by the United States, the link is wrong. Even if Ukraine is pushed towards once you make drones, it takes years to build. The military is funded by the USG and NATO, proven by our missile shipments, and they have no independent development capability. Iran tries to demand, but Driving a bargain is also bad. It says it will suggest Ukraine to make attack, but there's not a single car that Ukraine has the capability or that they perceive the situation. That's the same as their authors. One of the oil card is wrong. Rosenberg says that one strike on oil facilities is the environmental equivalent of a full-blown nuclear war because it causes so much pollution and starts to block out the sun. All we need to win is one strike, shocking the market isn't our impact. This card, the card about energy wars is our scenario. It says that if Iran strikes oil, it would have devastating retaliation, only impacts to strike neighbor facilities, which answers the rest of the card. The Israel evidence is from an Israeli ambassador until John Mearsheimer, and they never read card defense in the U.S. loses economic control of the civil service. They were only using nuclear weapons or ruthless and willing to risk it all. This is entirely external, and the drone cannot solve it. It happens before drones can solve the war, and there's zero evidence about drones dropping Israel, and zero impact even. And if it isn't speculative, it's predicted because the words of the war and the willingness to do use. Now, Truancy counterplans out of Truancy allies are avoiding these they generate after possible and destroy the Truancy so the net sandbags are best offense winner. The Truancy includes zero justification, so you can genuinely vote die from this. It wrecks fairness and clash by skewing strategic decision making, but it can't solve our troubles about Iran or sponsor terrorist attacks on oil facilities. But it zeroes the Iran turn because it ends the war, and their turn is long or good. So permutation can both delete the entire Truancy. They conceded all the multi-leader senators. Adversaries see the U.S. is bogged down in Iran and starts wars elsewhere. Truancy vote versus horizontal escalation is inevitable because China and Russia perceive the U.S. as unfair. The way they track organizes those wars cause extinction, and they've never a defense to it. The Truancy defense of China and Russia is a big two thumbs down. Our scenario was not that they will start new wars elsewhere. So literally zero defense has ever been read. Now, middle powers was answered about the automation game. Other countries solve AI zeros middle powers because they conceded that happens inevitably, and the webinar didn't include any additional caveats. But the Apple AI manual says the government is the central hub for tactile recruitment, but only we can rediscuss PC unions don't stop innovation. It's not taken out because internally to the turn is recruitment, and they concede the TVR's key on the advantage counterplan. I'm finishing Tracy Nihil. Here, we're trying for the government to recruitment down and working, not going to the same quality folks. They don't have enough folks to say work, they're trying to focus on modernization of skill. The long-term critics will thus impact tech, not 1 year, not 1 year project. Observer effect counterplan. The counterplan is wildly insufficient to solve secrecy. One instance of the executive backing down does not prevent them from integrating military in the military into tech, and their impacts incredibly vague. Do both. Yeah, the court doesn't strike it down. Proof that the worm can never override the signal of the counterplan. This just be perceived as the executive following on to the court's ruling. This is not mutually exclusive. They function beyond the entire government just forces the executive to cave into a seat in the court, which means the only resort of the firm is that counterplan says the executive is likely to lose the case, nukes on the case, and says the executive loses, and if they win follow on, it just means it doesn't. Now, say no is 100. The neg has not read a single card that assumes either the current court, current Congress, or current executive. The oldest card they have in this question is from the House compelling the White House, but it does nothing about the signal of the counterplan. There's genuinely not a single card that details Trump's reaction to the counterplan. Has some cards that says against Congress and the executive the chance, but there's no risk of any follow-on. SCOTUS will strike down any restoration of CBRs as an unconstitutional limitation on the unitary executive. All recent shadow and regular docket cases prove which is Anderson by consensus proves there's a 6 vote majority match in Trump. Notification of worker CBR has a case pending argument which violates the unitary executive and the circuit health insurance. Anticipation ruling from the 6th justice on the Supreme Court that will strike down the anti-consumer HC says violates expected. Fiat is key. Trump is likely to disobey precedent in response to the court striking down the axiom that eliminated civil service protection. Durable fiat ensures it doesn't impact solvency, but the counterfeit signal is unlikely to spur executive follow-on, which is Andrea says a terrorist example about why Trump just found a way to circumvent the ruling, which means even if the counterfeit sends a signal that he would lose in this case, he would necessarily pursue external ways to circumvent. And we saw the impact, so there's no offense. There's 0% scenario for AI-related extinction from here. And 25, sci-fi cliche AI goes rose extinction potential, no scenario where AI concludes the extinction like humans. Travel, we don't think AI could kill us with nukes, even if AI required the ability to launch all warheads would fall short of extinction. Key limitations AI would need to infect communities that would isolate if AI accelerate climate change would not rise to extinction. Humans find new environmental niches. It also answers autonomous weapons. It also answers autonomous weapons because it says it's impossible, and we're already doing it, so there's no need this should be impact.
So wait.
Thank you.
No, I didn't.
Let's see, you have no more than the two. See?
powers turn, I put that on advantage 2. I think it was on advantage 1 in 1 AR, so wherever you put that.
Yeah.
Then the Iran turn stuff. Then advantage, or then the automation DA, and then advantage 1. And then, sorry, I'm just gonna redo the order.
Huh?
I'm gonna redo the order. I'm so sorry. I'm really tired. Okay. We're gonna start with the middle powers turn, and then the automation game. Okay. And then the Iran turn, which might be you going back to advantage 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the observer effect. Then advantage 1.
Wait, sorry.
The damage one's all the polypress shit. Yeah,
Yes.
great.
You don't have to say the arguments. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We put
Yeah.
the powers on advantage 1 in the 1 AR, didn't we?
Yeah,
When you started talking about it, I just went to page 2 where that was and flipped that shit.
That was
So
on
for me, it was still on
Can
page.
I copy paste the
Yeah,
order of
yeah,
advantage
you
2
can.
so I don't totally screw myself?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
I'm gonna make a
Yeah.
new
That's
middle powers
okay.
flow actually.
Okay, Nora, one more time.
This is
Yes.
Newtonian.
Okay, one more time. So the middle powers turn, then automation DA.
Okay.
The Iran turn, so that might be that one advantage 2.
Uh-huh.
The observer effect counter plan,
Uh-huh.
advantage 1.
Okay. Okay.
So ready to go.
Well.
Okay.
At what cost? Locked in for who?
Okay, everyone here?
Yeah.
There was way too much conceded in the choosing when AR no recovery. They conceded that no power solved their play crisis. In fact, they conceded that the U.S. alone cannot solve AI. They misunderstood the charge as just diplomacy causes head, which is bad, but it's just that diplomacy is bad and retrenchment is wrong. They didn't accept no power fail. So the task force account that solves their impacts in AI better. AI causes extinction. They dropped it out since it causes recursive self-improvement in the past. U.S. power that is unregulated by middle power leverage and regulations. Also, China AI causes extinction and causes irresponsible deployment and causes extinction. Now, it always in time frame because the critical window is now is to regulate AI because if we don't regulate now, then even if AI takes time to build, there was a point of no return. It's truly to understand what even AI is doing because regulation now is specifically people also now is on magnitude because AI infiltrates every single aspect of the U.S. military and causes global existential risk. It is uncertain, which means that we have to do action now because it is impossible to understand AI algorithms, which means that integration now is key now. It also caps existential risk, which is independent because all of its unilateral diplomacy is key to solving the crisis. U.S. cannot, they have not read a single part about how the U.S. spills over to other countries regulating their own public goods. But we have evidence that unilateral diplomacy specifically generates the power of numbers in order to secure cooperation on trade, climate, health, innovation, energy development, with that creates a mutual incentive for conflict escalation and solves global risk management. That those two things, one, and prevents any escalation scenario abroad, including their Russia-China scenario, because it ensures that Russia-China have an investment in the global and unilateral order because other countries have so much leverage and resources over the economy, military, etc. That ensure that Russia-China wants to cooperate with other countries and the other countries are united in unilateral clause against that. Second, it solves their public crisis impact because it ensures that there is global cooperation on climate, how it does the U.S. alone supposed to solve things in climate innovation or AI. Obviously, there's just one country named China, which would mean a ton or China, where it's going to cause a recession. choose the argument, just in case military AI causes extinction, irrespective of superintelligence, you guys all send this out after code, and here is 21 hours, AI safety, can produce specific specification meaning, and the clever filter of the lazy press, which represents the word example, the word choice, or precious commands. Young Dutch recommended he said it's a goal of changing the law of the invented the reverse hack a critical infrastructure skill drugs who then go on a revision for humanity a hack or malfunction to manifest rapid recursive self-improvement. Now, the automation PA, absolutely none of this is relevant. We didn't concede other countries now solve AI. We conceded that other countries are key to solve AI. The one of our said that word for word, which I wrote out, we conceded that to make the term better because it ensures that they can help solve AI since other countries regulations necessary to solve global goods. App is capable AI, is AI totally irrelevant. Don't forget central office tech development because other middle powers obviously do have tech for all of our evidence. And also tech prosecuted AI regs, just be that if developing AI, we never said that AI is good. Also that AI is good, all that was answered on other patients. The US structurally can also AI regs, they are just one country and they sabotage middle power domestic credibility. Now, the Iran turn. I'm excited to clarify that the United States federal government should force swear starting conventional and even worse. That does not solve the AI turn because it was never about the US starting more about one about AI disrupting and second about China. And AI escalating second, it does solve Trump belligerent sabotaging middle powers because it means he can't just strike middle powers if he does not have diplomatic credibility. Now there's no impact of blowing up oil facilities. The nuclear winter card is totally not about blowing up oil facilities and one strike just without this alone. He already struck oil facilities and didn't cause any winter. So it happened before the turn. Just it's wrong. It doesn't happen before AI extinction because they said that it's a long war. They said it's a long war. Israel doesn't escalate and there's no scenario for Israel or Iran escalating. Iran using nuclear weapons. Excuse me, they don't have nuclear weapons. Second is that it doesn't escalate because no other great power would draw in. Russia, China don't have stakes in that. They want to preserve their own survival and the survival is not at stake. They won't want to entomb the victory because it has the serve for Muslims extremely important. We do get to support about that add-ons because like victories. Here for the options, there's no offense. It's to check to easy options because we wouldn't have known to put it in the one because you read it and the easy. We don't get to see kind of out of not add-ons, so that solves their offense. It doesn't skew strategy because you can just do quick analytics and the 2 hour justification time and do because obviously the first time the money argument defended no for the theory argument was in the money argument, so I can answer it. And the 2 in our no multi-theater offense, there's no chance that that's what causes Russian trying to defeat other countries from wrong. The money secret decides that the perception we're losing causes other countries to get the green light and make the turn. The proof the uniqueness proves that we will not lose the Iran war. It's about how we win the Iran war. The point says that we should win by effective diplomacy and regime change decide. So it's us winning by striking the market with the creation effective drones. That when it's the evidence that that is a way that the Trump can end the Iran war. Then yes, we have evidence about drones. And all of our evidence for Russia since the UN is able to now observe effect on one concede the defense of consideration just combination. There's no polling crisis. In fact, a polling crisis definition cannot be caused by a specific individual because it's a polling crisis, but one buffer solve other actors. Target polling crisis was specifically to the admin state when inflation increases the Fed hikes rates, which is an automatic state goes to economy specifically to the rest of polling crisis. It's the only mechanism for spillover. They say the US not killing the DA includes US insufficient because their evidence is only about global price, liquidity, and AI.
217.
Yep. Oh, I mentioned that part. Yeah, you can help me. Oh, wait, yeah. Good point. I actually was going to realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they didn't send the link.
Yeah,
Yeah, my bad, it's that.
Yeah, something. Yeah, I just got
Okay. 145. So we're at.
Cool.
Yeah, good.
So I'll put it.
Like, yeah.
Iran stuff. That's it. Automation is it. And then middle powers, wherever that's at. It is tried affirmative because we have enriched AI and enabling middle powers, but the status quo is only a gamble for growth. The Iran scenario, thus that way we have two basically conceded distinction scenarios. The first is Israel. The negative has never had a card that answers that if Israel perceives the U.S. to be losing in Iran, that they are going to first strike. The mere striker evidence is from the best professor from the nukes topic. You all know and love him. They have never had any defenses since Iran is the most reckless country in the world, and that they only care about protecting their own interests, and do not mind starting a nuclear war if you believe that the U.S. to be losing it is the only scenario that you know is completely external from everything else, which is a classic try or die ballot. They did not turn this into 2 hour. They just probably turned war or China and other things, but not specifically the Israel scenario. They just have no offense on this. Even if the second scenario that they have no game on is China and Russia starting horizontal wars. If they perceive that the U.S. to be losing, we are using munitions too much in Iran, and we know that we cannot possibly respond to if they were to progress in other scenarios. The Roper evidence and Trachtenberg says that Russia and China were to start new wars and new scenarios. Via horizontal escalation, you know that causes extinction because they have the biggest nuclear arsenals in the world, and the U.S. cannot respond because we are too bogged down in other places the entire debate to get to the Iran turn. They had to concede that U.S. diplomacy solves that we end the war, and that all this is certainly affirmative. So the affirmative is a 100% risk solvency on preventing these extinction scenarios, which you should not gamble on. Their defense to this scenario was wrong. They just said that the status quo will not control. Their evidence only says Russia and China will not get involved in Iran, not that Russia and China will not get involved in new theaters, which means that they don't have answers. The uniqueness argument is wrong. Even we don't lose the Iran war. Our scenarios are about Trump's perception and Israel's perception that we might. So we do not need to win that the war is certainly a win or a loss, but rather that people think it might be, which they have just never answered. The status quo is not us winning by striking. It is us wars winning by or us striking new places, or China and Russia striking us, which is not a predictable scenario. Automation. There is only a risk to the absolute AI expertise in government. That means that only our impacts are external. It means that it has to be tried by affirmative because voting app gives us a chance to have a leg up in the AI talent race. But voting negative can never solve Iran war with certainty. We did not. The Afghan AI is not irrelevant. They just said other middle powers have technology, which is great for their internal link, but does not answer the fact that the app has an inroads to their internal link. So it can never be structurally tried by negative. It means we do not need middle powers because the U.S. government can handle it. Even if you were not 100% certain in the government's ability to solve, you should be willing to risk it because our impacts are external. They said that it's key to. They said that AI. They said that it would not be key to the AI, or the AI structurally cannot solve AI rights. That is irrelevant because we have talent in the government. That we will develop it safely. We can help other countries do the same thing. And it is just a try, which is all we need to lower the relative risk of negative offense. Middle powers. The status quo is a worse try than the affirmative. You know the workers have had rights since the 70s and the world has been stable. Diplomacy has prevented World War III. They've managed every blood crisis and we're doing okay, but Trump is the most unpredictable actor in the world that has seen in recent history. So voting negative is just a try for him to cause disaster and hope that Indonesia or Brazil can handle the fallout. But voting affirmative is a try to restore the most stable bureaucracy and diplomatic force in the world. We have straightened this impact turn since the 2AC, and the negative has never answered a single warrant in the CAS evidence. It is phenomenal. It took me like 45 seconds to read the Tracy straight turned to CAS says the diplomacy is the only way to stop Trump from closing out middle powers because he is too belligerent rebalanced global relationships, which allows other countries to ensure that the U.S. can step back. The U.S. stepping back now fails because nobody knows that they have to fill in for us. They just think that Trump is unpredictable and doing a bunch of crazy shit, which is that middle powers never starts to do the good things that their dissent requires. The evidence says that quote U.S. diplomatic retreat is good, so it is never. So their spin about it being about their argument being any diplomacy bad is wrong because our says that the plan is key to that. So their spin about it being about their argument being any diplomacy bad is wrong because our says that the plan is key to that retreat, which means it unlocks the. They basically never answered it. They just said, "I didn't understand what this was," but it is not a response, and it is incredibly clear from the card doc now. Our answer was wrong. They said retrenchment is irrelevant. That is wrong. But evidence, they just said diplomatic credibility stops middle powers. That is not true. Their evidence does not say that any diplomacy is bad. It says that when the U.S. tries to do too much, it is bad. But we have straight turned the fact that the only diplomacy allows the U.S. to do less and ensure other countries have the opening to do more. The negative has a single link card from the one and it says the middle powers need to hedge their bets because Trump is confusing and weird. Cashless diplomacy specifically solves that because it allows us to communicate with other countries. Now what Trump is doing is retrenchment and opens the door for them to solve. You should err affirmative. The negative has conceded that the app solves diplomacy and that is effective the entire debate because they had to do that to get the turn. So you should err on the side of letting diplomats open the door to middle powers instead of rolling the dice, letting the U.S. collapse the global order and then praying for the best that middle powers know what to do to fill in. Now the impact overview proper is not true. Concede, like our statement, so you don't get to turn that. It does not turn either scenario. The status quo is not a counter plan because the affirmative is an inroads to that. Even if they extend the AI does not cause extinction. Defense for new evidence is broader than theirs. It says that it is a sci-fi cliche and it can never be existential. There's no scenario that isn't just debate brain rot. If AI cannot launch nuclear weapons, it cannot isolated populations, and it cannot overcome environmental resilience. So even if we will try to use it in military applications, it is never going to reach the threshold. You should not fall to the cult of specificity. It's never going to be catastrophic. And you know that there's a risk with the app solved that it does not turn the scenarios we're going for. The two are just my main generic arguments about happening extras or and they've never had a single card in words why it can solve Israel or China or Russia aggressing in other regions, so you know that only the affirmative can solve those entirely external scenarios, but the affirmative certainly has inroads to their offense, so it can never structurally be a negative ballot because we have access to their shit and they don't have access to our shit.
I like.
I'd love revenue, but I've got Carter's number.
No, no, but I agree.
That aside, and go back to 2005.
Or let's just debate this for his.
Stop is low, no, that's the phone.
There we go. It seems like it was usually. Well, not Octos. Did you see Will?
Yeah,
They're all coming.
Oh, okay. So we should wait a sec.
If you all want,
I mostly just for Will, to be honest.
Yeah.
There we go.
There is.
We're gonna be for Carly.
Oh, sorry, everybody. Sorry,
Okay.
for the link.
We got everybody?
I'd say so.
Congrats to both teams for reaching the octafinals of the 80th National Debate Tournament. The decision was unanimous for the afternoons.
Just a teeny bit. I don't super care about like topic specific feedback, but if you have some comments, then maybe that would be good.
I thought the 1NC could have been better structured, which is not a speaking thing. I thought you all did a really great job and should be very, very proud of your performance this season. As one of the first round bid rankers, I was privy to looking at your sort of in a both in a vacuum separated from the actual debates, and was incredibly impressed with your progress and growth over the season, and getting to judge you twice at the NDT was an absolute pleasure and delight. Yeah, I would say for future rounds, a little bit tighten up the 1NC a little bit. I know it's new. It's okay to take a little bit of prep to like mess around with making sure things are exactly the way that you want them to be. I was kind of bogged down a little bit by the mess, which kind of happened on both sides because I'm flowing on paper, so I cannot just make a new flow. And it ended up being fine, like I figured it out. But I would say maybe like for the future, like tighten up a little bit, and then I think you're in a great place. And I'm so proud of both of you. Like what a great season you all had. So congratulations, for real.
Yeah, your docs were one of the only teams whose docs made me feel something at one point. So I think the non-topic specific feedback that I would give is the offense that you went for in this debate relied on conceding a large part of a 1AC internal link chain and then disagreeing about the impact, and that always gives the app a lot of leeway to characterize the parts that you conceded. And so in a scenario like that, I think you need to be overwhelmingly on top of like talking about the interpretation of the cards, like the 2AC cast card on middle tower. I think for me it was like probably the most important part of the debate, and you don't have quite enough to say about that contests their characterization of the link, which like got them out of a try or die AI X risk thing that you needed for your offense feature. So just like, the thing that judges end up caring about a lot is the place where the app has the most kind of freedom to characterize. And so like just anything that you can do to clamp down on that freedom and make the characterization what you need it to be for the rest of your offense to work is like at the absolute most premium for each time.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. My favorite political weekend is the one I got through all of that. I've kind of given it to anyone else. So congratulations on an awesome season. I agree, it's tough to concede an internal link for the impact turn when the internal link is so spin-centric in its interaction with everything else. It's like generally hard to, I agree with when it's saying structurally. I think it's particularly awkward when it's like diplomacy, mishmash, solved stuff and you've got like a diplomacy mishmash solve stuff impact turn. And so in this case, I think like the concession and the thing you're going for are particularly sort of prone to this kind of vulnerability. And I would have maybe taken like a, that's basically it. That's all I have for non-public.
Echo similar things in terms of congratulations on your season, and it's been great judging you all. Had you in lab, very glad to see how far you've come. That's one of the things that makes it really fulfilling. For non-super specific debate comments, I think agree with the thing Munson said about just like gotta talk more about the cards. For me, I think just using some more like debate language and framing on the link turn for middle power would have been really helpful. Just like some discussion of uniqueness, whether or not they can really link turn this thing without having uniqueness for middle power working now would have been helpful, or just like some uniqueness controls, the link versus the link turn. We have really good cards that middle powers are going to succeed now, so it doesn't matter if the plan like makes it smoother. You should look to the 1C uniqueness lines in our evidence that are not really contested by MSU before evaluating anything else. So just like some sequencing on what order I should go through the stuff and where your cards are better and where they've been light would have been helpful for just controlling that page. And then I think for the case stuff, just a little bit more like assessment of what are they doing well on. And I thought they were pretty persuasive on like, hey, we've got these two external things that they can't really get at. So just some more assessment of like, they might win this Israel's part, but here's why our thing is first, or like structural status quo counter plan applied to that specific scenario, like would get you a little bit more mileage, just a little bit more like, where are they going to win something? And then how can you use the other term for like impact overview or impact comparison or head comparison to control some of their options for within the
Yeah, I agree with all that. My kind of just this debate thought is just like, I think that having two impact terms on the same advantage complicates the capacity to do the sorts of in-depth argument resolution that you need to do to win, like linked to one and defense to the other parts of the offense that the app has. And so I just like, I think my general recommendation would just be like, again, kind of going to Danielle's thing, just like starting in the 1C and making a choice about which of these impact terms to have there. That way you can kind of develop defense to the other stuff in a little bit more nuance and depth and develop kind of like unique components in ways that get around some of the ways that they're trying to spin out of the link. All four debaters in this debate are so awesome. You all have the just thing where it's like your commitment to research shines through in the way that you give speeches, and like that is like it's what I love about debate. And so it has been such an honor to judge both of you all, and for people who are coming back, I can't wait to judge you again. Joanna, you are so great. I'm so sad I don't get to judge you again, but thank you so much for what you've done.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
These cross-exes were awesome to watch. God, if every cross-ex in debate was like this, I would be in heaven. This was amazing. You all just like really knew the arguments, you really engaged with them, and that was really kind of, I used to say cross-ex is my favorite part of debate to watch, and then it really fell off, and now I like this, like it brought it back for me. We're back. So great work there. Everybody really knew what they were talking about, which was pretty fun.
I'm trying to decide if I care, but thoughts on the comment? No.
I just
Well,
thought,
you didn't think about it.
like Trump says no seems real. Like I didn't look at all your cards, so I thought they were good. I'm like, he's not going to say yes to this specific issue. We've got a bunch of the cards. There's nothing.
Yeah, one quick half thing on the observer thing. I thought you should, the 2C, I think, could have easily said the plan solves the internal better. Because if the point is to say the executive needs to be scared of losing on NatSec issues in order to cause self-restraint on this other external thing, the plan being binding can only be more of a signal for that. And when I've seen counterplans like this before, I think the better net benefit is the core politics thing rather than the executive thing. That so like scratching core politics made that dicey. Like I think that was the way better net benefits. Like I maybe would have not extended that in the block, given that the also the 2C didn't say that. So like understandable to extend it in the block, but just like, you know, if you have another like app versus new process thing debate, just take a second in the prep time and like kind of think about not just the standard like no spillover thing, but like, is there a way in which F solves better by factors and things like that?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Just like the quickest temperature check while everyone is putting their computers away.
Yeah.
Once you counterplan out of like Trump blows other people up, like we all think that's okay? Or should the Tuer try, or like if this ended up being a run bait and Tuer was like, screw this counterplan, I'm going for Trump blows everybody up? Or do we think that's probably fine for that? This is a pretty like two-end vibe panel.
I feel like this end of the panel is
Yeah.
like boo,
Yeah.
maybe, and then
Okay.
My
So just go for like
objection,
Israel, Russia, China.
my objection would be the like negative action, like kind of just
like future
yes.
negative
Yeah,
action
that,
works
like,
like to its kind of.
yes, yeah. The fact,
Yeah.
the reason that counterplan should go away is because it's like object fiat, not because it's in the two
So you gotta feel like a policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
well, I
Yeah.
also think it like,
Start
I
over.
mean, the sort of, in addition to the like, truancy, don't love it, is the like, wouldn't it actually make Russia, China, Russia more likely? Like, I,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
a little, like-
which I,
This
that,
makes
yeah,
sense.
it's just like,
Okay.
I mean, you don't really need to go for the theory of that, it's just like substantively, it seemed like it, like it.
Yeah, had it been relevant, I would have liked to object it much more for the object fiat reason.
That makes sense. Yeah, I should have been there.
I super agree with that. I think like, Pussy reads an add-on, because I have a chance to say
For sure.
counterplan.
For sure.
Not, maybe not like world peace counterplan, but like
Right.
a counterplan.
Yeah. It's
add-on.
like, but they gotta put it in a
And
policy.
it's like the neg argument, it's like you can only do it for add-ons in the two ACs, it's like super good.
Yeah.
I thought that you could have also considered it, like a shield with the link.
Yeah, I think
Or
it's
like
decent.
the net benefit of it, because they were like Trump craziness
Yeah.
means middle powers going down, counterplan removes a good bit of the craziness because no more whatever, no more strikes on random countries, so I thought
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
we
we
should
should-
have linked to it.
Thank you. Also, maybe maybe not. That might have some weird effect with the observer effect stuff going on. It's like that probably causes, like they fiated Trump self-restraint and the net benefit is Trump restraint. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe I'll never have to think about that again in my life.
Hopefully not.
yeah.
So,
I just had one question, purely out of curiosity. So the observer effect counterplan, how F are you on like, you do not get to fiat a perfect sequence of events where governmental actors do this sort of, not
are we better on like,
Why?
given there is sequencing, if it gets per time frame?
Yes.
Yes.
They-
Yeah, that's
they
what we should
introduced
do.
delay.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
it's not
because it's like, they're kind of like to have it all at once. It's like the district court, then the
Yes, the
appellate court, then the
court
Supreme
does
Court.
not just like fiat at every single level
Yeah,
at
that's
once.
what's
Okay.
so bad.
It's like scramble, then. Like, there's all sorts of like good ways to explore that. I'm way more.
Almost every theory objection that gets phrased as counterplan bad should go away, I think is more usefully phrased as logical counterplan lets us do something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is a good way, it's like, that's a good risk.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good luck in this.
Phenomenal debate.
Good season.
Phenomenal season.
Always good debating.